Hello, my wonderful CATAMANIA listeners. If you've been following me for a while, you are probably aware that I have set a set of slogans that have taken off that many of you really love. Some of them have become some serious beliefs and even missions. Like, for example, if something doesn't fit within your budget, I believe that you should just increase the budget. That a true dream job is to be a manager of husband's bank accounts. Now, some of these slogans have become serious missions. Like, for example, that we must resuscitate chivalry. Now, if you want to join me on any of these missions, or if you simply vibe with any of my slogans, you can now purchase my merch at mbhtv.com/collections/CATAMANIA. You also have a chance to win $5,000 if you purchase any of the pieces between now and end of July. The winner will be announced on my Instagram on July 29th. Good luck.
I was able to get promoted very fast to detective. I would look for the top 10 most wanted. He's driving like a blue Hyundai. I need helicopter. I need backup.
Were they wanted at that time?
Wanted suspects.
That sounds like a Hollywood movie.
Guys were wanted for murder, like the heinous crimes. By September of 2020, I made my first $1,000 online. And by March of 2021, I had my first $120,000 month. After that, year to date, we're at 24 million with that business.
And welcome back to this week's CATAMANIA episode. I recently found somebody who has an interesting story. He's a former police officer and detective who started an ATM business and scaled it to a really high level. Please welcome Mr. Paul Alex Espinoza.
I'm a big believer that I used to live the old American dream. That whole idea of the old American dream is completely gone because it is very hard to actually live a life just by having a 9-to-5.
Hello, my wonderful listeners, and welcome back to this week's CATAMANIA episode. You all know that I actually said you all instead of y'all for the first time in months, so that's awesome. You know that I'm very passionate about the subject of entrepreneurship, business, especially, we live in the part of the world where I feel like if you even have any entrepreneurial idea and you don't go for it, it's almost a shame because we're kind of free to do that. That's sort of the spot to do it, And I recently found somebody who has an interesting story of transitioning from not a typical 9-to-5, so to speak, into entrepreneurship. He's a former police officer and detective who started an ATM business and scaled it to a really high level that I'm excited to chat with him about. So without further ado, and without giving too much away, please welcome today's guest, Mr. Paul Alex Espinoza. If you enjoyed this episode and this podcast, remember to hit the like button, leave a nice comment, and stay blessed. Welcome to CATAMANIA.
What's up, Cristina? How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thanks for joining me.
Of course.
I remember I saw a video of yours talking about America.
Yes.
And the fact that you're grateful for certain things that it has provided. And then I went on your page and I thought, yeah, it's a really cool story. Like you think of it as a 9-to-5. You yourself kind of mentioned it in passing, even though it wasn't really a 9-to-5. So tell me about your previous career a little bit.
Yeah, great question. I always tell people I've always lived like 3 different lives. I was in corporate America from age 21 to 26. From 26 to about 31, I was a law enforcement officer. So I was a cop in the city of Oakland. Don't ask me why I decided to be the police, but I did. And then my third venture was being a full-time entrepreneur. And very unique story. I like the fact that you brought like the reel on Instagram about America. I'm a big believer that I used to live the old American dream. And, the old American dream is what my mother came to this country from Peru. My dad came from Mexico. They came in here thinking like, hey, work hard, make money, buy your first house, have some kids, and then just retire, right? And I think now in this generation, in 2024, that whole idea of the old American dream is completely gone. And the reason why I say that is because it is very hard to actually live a life just by having a 9-to-5, right, unless you are making more than $100,000. And about 70% of the United States doesn't. So now it's like, what do majority of Americans are supposed to do? How are they supposed to survive? And I was living in California at the time where I was a police officer. I was making $250,000 and I barely thought I was making it. But people are like, dude, you have like a great career. You have benefits. You have $1 million home. You have everything that you want. What else do you want? It was just something inside of me where I was like, I don't know. I feel empty. Like I don't feel that working 80 to 100 work weeks was my, I guess, like vision of my American dream. It was my mother's because she comes from Peru where, you know, they work 18. I mean, they work 18 to however many hours a day, but all she knew was work, 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 work. And I love my mother because she was a single mother when I was 2, raised a beautiful family, me, my 2 sisters, was able to buy her home. She was able to retire as a phlebotomist at UC San Francisco. And yeah, I mean, she did great things and she showed me the value of working hard. But my American dream was a little bit different. I was looking for more time freedom. In the last 2 years in law enforcement, that's when I decided to start investing into a very simple business, which a lot of people are like, that's very unique. And it's automated teller machines, ATMs. Started investing into ATMs towards the last 2 years. And it was all because a friend of mine would nonstop talking about it. Hey, you should really look into ATMs, make your money work for you. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I've always had that type of entrepreneurship spirit of just imperfect action, just making it happen, right? And I started my own ATM business the last 2 years, was able to grow it to 30 ATMs, made me financially free. And when I say financially free, that means it was bringing in around like $12,000 a month. My bills at that time was around $6,500. So essentially, I was able to reduce the work hours when I was working in law enforcement from 80 to 100 to now 40 hours, which is the standard 9 to 5 hours, right? But was able to reduce it. From there, I didn't stop. I still had like the entrepreneurship like itch. I was just like, okay, what else can I do, right? Because I successfully did this on the side. I still like being a cop at that time, but I was like, something else is missing. So let me jump on social media after not being on social media for 8 years. And I'm talking about, I wasn't on social media since MySpace.
Wow.
I know, I'm aging myself. But I
was never on MySpace because it didn't quite make it to my part of the world, actually. Me, yeah.
So I jumped back on Facebook, right? And start joining a bunch of Facebook groups, start really looking into how other entrepreneurs, consultants, digital creators, they actually created an education space online, which I think is very unique. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. We never had this back in the day. And I actually got an ad, Zuckerberg, got an ad from a book called Digital Millionaire. And I remember it was a free book plus shipping, bought it. I must have read that book 8 times. I loved that book. In the book, it resonated with me so much because it was about the author. He was a business owner who owned a bar, and he went through hard times. He had a bill from the IRS for like $250,000, and he didn't know how he was going to come up with that money. And time was ticking, and he was stressing and stressing. He was doing anything to go ahead and cover the bills. So then he decided to go ahead and learn Facebook ads to run traffic to his business. He successfully did it, which he was able to cover his bills. Now he took it a step further. He was able to go ahead and actually teach people online how to run Facebook ads to their businesses, to their brick and mortar businesses. And when one night he was able to create $45,000 from a 1-hour webinar, which every time I read it, I still remember myself at the desk working my 16th hour on overtime. And it was the middle of the night. I'm drinking my coffee. I'm just like, wow, like it's such a maze, right? And I could see the vision. So essentially, I take the next step, which I contact his consulting group, jump on a call. And it's like, well, Paul, what are you good at? And I'm like, well, I'm only good at two things. ATMs, I know how to successfully do that on the side hustle, and being a cop. You know, I was an award-winning detective back then. And they were like, well, nobody wants to be the police back then because it was like during the whole like BLM protest and all that jazz. And I get it, you know. I've always been the guy that's always been like neutral and all that. So I'm just like, yeah, you're right. So let's focus on ATMs. And he's like, okay, you should do well. You should do well. But he's like, let me ask you a question. What would be life-changing money for you? And I told him at that time, I was like, well, I'm already financially free. So I just threw out a number. I was like, $10,000. He's like, that's it? I was like, what do you mean that's it? $10,000 is a lot of money for a lot of people, right? And me being brand new into digital marketing in the online space, I thought that was a tremendous amount of money. So then he's like, okay, well, how much is the program? He said, well, $10,000 on the call, $15,000 if you don't want to accept it now and you come back later. So I remember I told myself, I was like, you know what? If I don't make this $10,000 back, it's on me. So I took extreme ownership right there and then. I still remember sitting in my car talking to him outside my home. And that day, it was April 2020. I bought my first program on digital marketing. By September of 2020, I made my first $1,000 online by going ahead and actually launching my own informational course about ATMs, how to show anybody how to do ATMs within 30 days. And by March of 2021, I had my first $120,000 a month as a solo entrepreneur, refined the entire program, really looked and did some market research, saw that people were very introverted nowadays and they didn't want to talk to other people. And I was like, well, I'm pretty decent with soft skills. So let me go help build a call center. Let me find the locations for people and let me provide people with the actual machines. People loved it. Business skyrocketed within the first year, 1.7 million. Second year, we crossed 9 million. And then after that, year to date, we're at 24 million with that business. And then, man, the story just goes on and on. We launched a couple other businesses. I've launched a second business called Merchant Automation, which right now, year to date, that's at 6 million. That has to do with credit card terminals. We help people make residual income from that. And then the third business, this actually goes back to a passion project of mine. And it's actually called the New American Dream. And the New American Dream is essentially a program where I help people that are just new, starting in the online space. Because I wanted to go to my humble beginnings. What path really changed the dynamic of my life? And yes, I was financially free with ATMs. I became a millionaire on paper with real estate because I was buying homes since the age of 22. But what really changed my vision, my mindset, what connected me with people that I can actually have a deep connection with was digital marketing. And I've been able to connect with so many people around the world. You know, we were just talking about, you know, Portugal and being a nomad and, you know, how we pay taxes here and how we don't pay taxes in different countries. And I wouldn't have been able to see this type of environment, people, or culture if it wasn't for digital marketing, if it wasn't for me reading that book 8 times. And now I want to help people do the exact same thing.
What was the book called again?
Digital Millionaire.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, digital marketing space is fascinating to me. I think once you get into it and you see the benefits of, you know, social media and the internet space in general these days, because there's a lot of negativity there too, you know, in the whole space of social media. But once you see the opportunity, it's like, wow, this is actually really cool. You can build a lot of really great stuff. I want to go back to your first, well, I guess it was sort of your second career, to you being a police officer.
Yes.
How did you get to, because you got to a detective fairly shortly after you started.
Yes.
I don't know anything about that. I've never been a cop, but how did that happen so quickly for you?
Yeah, actually, very unique story. I'm not a militant person. I come from sales. I'm very sales oriented, so I love to talk to people. I did that for 6 years. And then when I went into law enforcement, I remember one of my mentors. He was a recruiting training officer. He has said, guys, and he told my academy class this when I was young, and I was just 26, and I was just like, I was scared because I didn't know what the next 6 months was going to happen in academy, because they yell at you, they make you do these 8-mile runs, and then they make sure to shut off the lights when they're go ahead and instructing the class to see if you're going to fall asleep, and put you on high pressure situations because you're the police, so they're trying to train you. But I will never forget when one of my trainers goes and says, you know who make the best police officers in the United States? And everybody's like, military, security guards. No, the best police officers are actually people that have sales experience. Why? And I found this very unique. They said the reason why is because when you are a police officer, you are going into a stressful situation where the person who's calling you, it's the worst day of their life. Mm-hmm. People don't call the police when they want to say hi to the police or they want to show off the police to their kids. No, they're calling the police when it's the worst day of their life. Something just bad happened to them, or they're involved in something bad. And now the police have to show up in order to go ahead, serve, and protect. So I always took that one saying, and in the back of my mind throughout my entire career, I was like, I'm here to protect and serve. I know it sounds cliche, but that's what I did. And that was my mind. I am a protector. So I went, once I got sworn in after 6 months, and I did the best job that I could do. I really enjoyed it. From the day that I actually put on the blue uniform with the badge, it was just like an honor for me. And the day that I graduated from academy, it was one of the proudest days of my mother's life. And the reason why is because later on I find out that in Peru, back when she was a kid, she wanted to be a police officer. But back in the day, they wouldn't allow women to be police officers unless you were like a politician's daughter or somebody famous. That's the only way you would be a police officer. Other than that, you had no chance. And when she saw me in the uniform, she told me, she's like, wow, you're actually living my dream. And I was like, really? I was just like, wow, that's crazy. So I always took that. And my parents, they were all about it. They loved it. They were like, we always see you, being a cop, just the way you are and everything. So they really loved that I picked that career. And I remember no one that I grew up with, they were like, dude, you're the police? That's crazy. Because I used to be a nightclub promoter when I was like from 18 to 24 as well. It's like a side hustle, right? So I always had that entrepreneurship spirit inside of me. I just didn't know it yet because I didn't have mentors. It wasn't like nowadays where you go on Instagram and, you have these ultra successful experts talking about mentorship. Make sure you guys invest in self-education and everything, right? Back then, especially in the MySpace area, we didn't have all that. So I didn't really have anybody in my ear or somebody in my circle trying to help me level up. I was the one out of my group trying to level up, but I just didn't know. I didn't have any guidance. So I just always imagined like, wow, if I had the opportunity at age 21 right now, what all these like younger folks have with social media.
There's also a lot of BS out there, I will say.
There is.
Like, especially like all the financial gurus who are like, with me, you'll make, $12,000 a month. We were just talking about that the other day. Like here, all the fake money out there that are like people who are trying to, and I always say like, it's just look at people's results, right? Yeah. You build a business, you make money, and then you're like, hey, I did this successfully. I can teach other people how to do it. But there's so much advice out there that's just like, I don't even think you're real. I think you're just making money by helping people make more money, if that makes sense, Yeah. I've stumbled upon that and I'm like, I don't, what did you do before this though? What was your,
Yeah. I mean, I always tell people this, due diligence, right? Yeah. Because it's exactly the same thing as like when you go and you pick a college, or let's say if your parents pick a private school. Your parents are going to do their market research. They're not just going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to send you to a private school just because it says private, right? Anybody can do that. But when you do your due diligence, you want to make sure they're credible. You want to make sure that you actually talk to existing clients and that there's actual real results. If a person's able to take you from A to Z faster, I would pay all day. The last mentor I paid $150,000 to meet with him only 4 times a year. He's the owner of ClickFunnels, Russell Brunson. The guy has an evaluation of $1 billion company. But why did I pay that amount of money? Proximity. That's what I've learned, proximity. Because one person can change your life. Mm-hmm. I mean, several people have changed my life because I've gone into this industry, and I've been open-minded about going to conferences, taking up programs and everything else. I just do my due diligence, especially because I'm a former law enforcement. Mm-hmm. So like I always double think, and I always think like, what if, right? So I always like to say, okay, well, I would like to believe this person, but let me do a little bit more research. Yeah, and that's why we have Google, we have reviews, we have all that. Yeah. Is it going to work for everybody? No. Yeah. If you buy a program online, you buy a course in any nation industry, you have to be real with yourself. The day that really changed my life in those last 2 years in law enforcement is when I really sat down, and when I had bought that $10,000 program in digital marketing, I told myself, if I don't make the money back, it's on me. So I took extreme accountability that I was going to make that money back. And if I didn't, it was my own fault. Mm-hmm. Obviously, because the guy at that time, Dan Henry, that was the author of Digital Millionaire, he already had hundreds or thousands of client success stories. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I did look at, I was like, what makes these people special? And that's what everybody has to look at when they're online. Because in online, what is Instagram built for? To show the best moments of our life, right? Yeah, it's true. I talk to my lady, my fiance, about this, and because she's been a makeup artist for 17 years, so her job the entire time is to make women beautiful. Mm-hmm. And she says, "Babe, I'm like the queen catfish," and I was just like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I could turn any woman from like a 5 to a 10," and I'm like, "Man, that's unfair."
Did you ever see those videos, like the before and afters from like a professional? I even had like, I had a photo shoot recently, and my makeup artist. Like, I was fine. Like, I was looking okay in the beginning, but I was like pale, I was tired. Yeah. And then 40 minutes go by and I'm like, whoa, I'm like a completely different person. Like they can make, it's crazy. Yeah. And then to add to that, literally exactly what you said, you're posting just the highlight of everything, right?
So you're posting the highlight. A lot of people, especially when they're doing digital marketing, they're selling courses, programs, depending on what niche you're in. Okay, what I've seen based on my experience is roughly 3.5 years in digital marketing. I've been able to be at that top 1% level of digital marketing. The only reason why I show value, I educate people, and I build foundation with my audience. If you're able to do these 3 things, you will win all day, even if you even have content that shows you, let's say, riding a bicycle. There's sometimes where like I'll have my video guy take pictures of me in my living room with my dog. And they're like, "Hey dude, like what is this for?" I'm like, "My content?" Yeah. And some people even ask me, they're like, "Hey, you take pictures with just you and your dog in your living room, and then like you get a crazy amount of views. How?" Because it's more than the picture. Mm-hmm. It's actually the story behind it. See, what I teach my mentees and what I've taught the 60 employees that I have, and I always tell everybody's a marketer. It's true. Everybody's a marketer. Whether you're in sales, whether you're doing the tech, whether you're doing just content, you're a marketer. Look at Jake Paul. This is a great example. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary he did where he fought Tyson Fury. They asked Jake Paul in that documentary, "Hey, are you a boxer? Are you mad that the world says you're fake?" And he says it with so much pride, and I give him so much respect because, to be honest, I'm not a big Jake Paul fan. But when I saw the documentary, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. He goes and says, "I'm not a real boxer. I'm an entertainer. There's a difference. I'm the highest paying boxer because I'm the best entertainer." Mm. And it's true. Because Tyson Fury's father, the day of the fight, went up to Jake Paul and his brother and said, "This is the biggest fight my son is going to have because of you guys. good job. And they got paid $60 million, more than the legends ever got paid to fight that fight.
Yeah.
So you got to look at it. What is the number one source right now that's going to equal wealth, especially in 2024? Attention.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of the people, it goes into the perspective of how you see things. A lot of the younger marketers that I've been seeing, they think by flossing Lamborghinis, Ferraris, this lifestyle, that it's going to equal instant sales. Here's the thing. For majority of them, it's a short coming business, meaning that they'll probably do good for about a year. And then after that, what ends up happening is the clients or the prospects, they're saying, where are the results? And then if they don't have any results to show, they're out of business.
Right. If
And
the car was rented and all of us,
And that's what ends up happening,
Yeah.
So people really look at the longevity of things. And I was just talking to this on my IG team. I was telling him, I was just like, dude, thinking maybe move out the country next year. Like I was just saying to you guys, move out the country next year and, probably build more like a family brand, since I'm going to get married pretty soon, start having kids. And, my future wife, she wants to start getting into the social media marketing as well. And maybe I can push her brand because she wants to be the face, and she looks way better than me. So I don't want to be the face anymore. And it's a lot of work.
So to put her as the face of your...
Not my business, but
Yeah.
start her own business and build it with her.
Yeah.
So she can be basically the front person, be the marketer, basically be the person for the program. But essentially, I will run like the tech and the fulfillment and the staff, because it takes a tribe. It takes a tribe to build a multi-million-dollar business for sure. I wouldn't be able to do it by myself if I didn't have good people working for me. But not to go off topic, I remember the question that you asked me, and I went on like several different rants. But the reason why I was able to get promoted very fast to detective, well, within 8 months of me getting graduated from academy, I was a very proactive cop, meaning that I wanted to take the most serious criminals to jail. And I'm a big believer in, hey, I'm only going to go after these guys that are doing serious crimes. I'm not talking about weak crimes. I'm talking about serious crimes. And that's who I would look for. I would look for the top 10 most wanted in Oakland, California. And I remember that, I don't know, something with my vision, I can remember somebody's face even if I saw them like 10 years ago, but I'm bad with names. So I would literally be sitting in traffic, and I would remember be like, wait a minute, there's that guy that committed the murder like last year. And I'd put on the radios like, hey, code 33, there's the 187 suspect. He's driving like a blue Hyundai. I need helicopter. I need backup, blah, blah, blah. And it would happen I think like around 12 times. That happened to me. I would just see these
Were they wanted at that time?
wanted suspects.
That sounds like a Hollywood movie that I used to see in former Soviet Union, Like
it was
the
crazy. These guys were wanted for murder, like rape, like shooting, assault, like the heinous crimes. And like they started calling me like parole radar. That was my nickname. Like they're like, dude, how do you like just see these guys in traffic? It's crazy.
I'm just like sitting in. I don't have very good vision, so I'm just sitting and thinking. I would have been like, is it? So you must have really good vision, obviously.
Yeah. I have pretty good vision. But like I said, I'm bad with names, so I'm gonna be like, okay, let me look up the list. Oh yeah, that's him for sure. Yeah. And they'd be like, dude, how'd you spot him from that far? I'm like, dude, I was looking, because here's the thing: when you're passionate about what you do, it doesn't feel like work.
You were passionate about it.
I was passionate about being a police officer at the time. I was passionate about helping people. So how would I help people? By actually arresting some of these worst offenders. And every morning and every night, I would study that list. Top 10 most wanted by my department. Okay. Oh, wow. This guy did this. I would go read the report and be like, okay, he's known to hang around these areas. Cool. Let me drive by there. Maybe when I have some free time during calls. Boom.
Wow.
Guys stand right there in the corner, thinking like it's A-okay. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And yeah, So within a short amount of time, got accommodation for that. And then from there, one of the captains was just like, "Hey, Paul, you do great work."
You're literally fishing for criminals on the streets.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and this ain't, jaywalking. This is not little misdemeanors. No, these are guys that already they've committed some of the worst crimes in that city.
Yeah.
And that city in itself had one of the worst murder rates in the United States for so long. And so I was able to get promoted very fast because I was a very proactive cop instead of being reactive.
You took initiative.
I took initiative.
How did you feel about the Defund the Police movement? Because you were a cop during that time.
Yeah.
Did that affect your desire to continue to be a cop?
No, it didn't. Because at the end of the day, everybody has their own opinion, and I respect everybody's opinion. But just because I don't agree with it, some people might, some people not, it didn't affect me. Because when it comes down to it, no matter what you do in life, you have self-control in what you can control. And that's the biggest needle mover, especially within yourself, your mind. So I remember one of the biggest, I guess you could say, demotivators for me was that it affected a lot of my coworkers and my supervisors when I was at the department. They would be like, "Oh man, tired
must
of..."
really hit your self-esteem. Like, as I mean, I've heard all sorts of stories that cops just didn't want to even, answer the calls anymore or whatever because they were.
Well, it wasn't the fact that they didn't want to answer the calls. They just didn't want to go ahead and be liable for going ahead and doing their job.
Right.
And it's crazy because they would get punished over the littlest things. And to me, I'm a big believer in God. So I always say God has already written everyone's life. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I just took police work and I stayed neutral and I just did the best that I could, and I'm very neutral. I have a big heart. So even like these heinous crimes that like these guys would do, that I would arrest them for like murder and rape and all that stuff, I'm still a very courteous guy. I'd be like, "Hey man, you want to make a phone call to your mom?" Like I would still do that. I would be like, "Hey, what like station do you like?" At that time, it was 106 KMEL, hip hop and R&B, and we'll be playing that, and drive to the station.
You should write a book, and they should make it into a movie. Like
I actually did write a book.
Could be a comedy, could be also like a really serious detective type of movie.
I actually wrote a book, From Blue to Digital Gold. So I tell from A to Z this exact story, but the details about the police work.
To.
Yeah, like, hey, I mean, it's customer service. That's the way I saw, So like, I was there to protect the public, and I was there to, still be courteous to people. Right. So that's why I always went to my coworkers, and the coworkers that would always be like, "Dude, this sucks. Like, why are they bashing us and all this stuff?" I was just like, "Dude, shit happens. Like, it wasn't your guys' mistake. Some, guy that was a cop did a big mistake, idiot, and messed it up for everybody else." And I mean, this is what you have to deal with. It's customer service. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah, I think, I mean, it's definitely very demoralizing. And I think people took it to such an extreme without realizing what that would entail, you know? Like, what does that mean exactly to defund the police? Have you been to a country where police is not funded enough?
It is not good.
It is not good. There's a lot of crime. There's, the extremes are very insane to me. Like, if you have a problem, the solution of it has to be like this huge level of just extreme on one side or the other. I don't know. It's bizarre to me that people can't just like be like, okay, let's differentiate this issue and this issue. Let's it's definitely. But so you were still a cop during that time, and then you said around April of 2020 or like September of 2020 is when you started to go into digital marketing, but you already had a sort of side hustle that made you financially independent around that time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So
you built it while you were still a full-time cop.
Correct. Yes.
You almost in a way had 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. When I transitioned to digital marketing is when I had to hire in the ATM industry, we call them vaulters. So vaulters is essentially a third-party business or a third-party person who goes and fills your ATM with the cash, because I was still doing that. So on the weekends or right before work, I would go and fill up my ATMs like in the morning, which is like the safest thing to do because you want to go before the business actually open up. So I had to hire that person, and then I hired a technician as well. The technician was on call. So in case machines went down, then that was covered. So my tangible ATM business was covered. Now, when I went into digital marketing, that was like what I like to call 6 months of hell. And I was waking up roughly like at 4 a.m. because I was doing the marketing, I was doing the sales, I was doing the tech, I was doing the customer service, I was doing the fulfillment, I was doing everything for ATM Together, which is now known as ATM Together. And I was still trying to learn everything at the same time. So I would wake up for 4 a.m. From like 5 a.m. to about 11 a.m., I would take calls with potential clients. And I would wake up this early because East Coast had an advantage. I was in the West Coast. So by the time that I woke up at 5, it was already 8 o'clock in New York. So I had a lot of East Coast clients. So I'd be like, hey, how's it going? They're like, dude, respect. You're up like at 5 a.m. in California. I'm like, yeah, man, I got to, make sure to take care of you guys. So I essentially built a multi-million-dollar business for the next 6 months, literally with like 3 hours of sleep a day. And it was bad, but I'm not gonna lie. I actually enjoyed it. And the reason why I enjoyed it, because to me, now I found 3.5 years later, it's really about the fulfillment of building startup companies that I really enjoy. I'm a visionary startup guy. I am not a logistics guy. I'm not a fulfillment guy. I can't just go in the back and just like type and just, oh yeah, cool, we made this much sales. That's not me. Mm-hmm. I like to market products. I want to see it through. I want to launch it and make sure that it's a success. And like, I like to go ahead and just like do the vision and execute and see the baby grow. That's me. I really get hyped off of that. And that's why, like, when I launched this third company, New American Dream, talking to these clients that are just like, they just found like their offer or like what they're really passionate about. And then they go and they're like, there's no way I can sell this for like $15,000. And I'm like, yes, you can. Mm-hmm. Like I have right now a client, she's been an actual influencer for 10 years. Okay. So she's like old school in it. And she actually has 1,000+ brands she's connected to. We're talking about like major brands like Gucci, Louis, Emirates. So no matter what brand you are or what type of influencer you are, like if you're a traveling influencer, if you're a fashion influencer, you could go to her and she can connect you with the brands guaranteed. You'll get a brand deal. Yeah. And she was charging like something crazy. Like she was only charging $3,000 for like 6 deals or something like that. And I was just like, how do you make money? I was like, you need to charge way more. Right. So it's the limiting beliefs.
It's selling ourselves short. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the limiting beliefs.
Yeah. I had someone review my media kit recently and she was like, what's wrong with you? Yeah. I was like, nothing's wrong with me. This is just how much I charge. She's like, you need to be charging more. And I was like, oh, damn, really? Yeah. We sell ourselves short a lot, I find. And we have like this set, price that we've established. And then it's kind of hard to move it up whenever you need to move it up, right? You need to almost convince yourself, no, I deserve more.
Oh, no, absolutely. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the type of client results you could get. So what she had in her arsenal was that she already had a 60,000 person email list. She already had hundreds of client testimonials, but she just didn't know the mechanics. She didn't have the processes. She didn't know how to build the funnels. So right now, my team, we're essentially going to launch her funnel. We're building her a community with Facebook first. And this is what I usually call stage 1 with digital marketers, is that if you're a digital marketer and you have a great product that is proven, and proven means that you sold at least 5 units of your offer to someone, doesn't matter who, but someone, that means that your offer, you are able to run ads to it. Because the number one mistake that a lot of marketers make is that they'll go ahead and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads, but they'll run traffic to an offer that is not, people don't want it.
Right.
So when your offer is proven, then you can run the ads to it. That's basically pouring gas to fire. And now that's where you start getting your processes. You get your funnels. So stage one is essentially, I always tell people to do a digital community. Digital community for both of the companies that I did ATM together and then merchant automation. Each one of them was able to hit 250K just solely off Facebook, because what I would do is I would run ads to an opt-in page, which is basically a website. On that website, I would advertise something like a free lead magnet. The free lead magnet could be an ebook, it could be a mini course, it could be a PDF, and then people enter their email, their name, and their phone number. Then they get transitioned into the actual group. While they're in the group, think of the group as a crock pot. Mm-hmm. They're getting marinated. So you're nurturing your prospect and your client. Now, this is where we execute. Once a week, you as the attractive character or whoever is the face of the company will go on a weekly live or a webinar inside of the group where you essentially will offer free trainings to the people inside the community. And at the very end, you will do a CTA, which is a call to action. The call to action typically is you want to do a 2-step process where you go ahead and they book a call with your team, 15-minute informational call. So it's not salesy. And then people are also, they feel good about it because they're like, okay, it's just informational call. Cool. 15 minutes. That's not a lot of time. So then they go on there. And what will happen is you will separate the people who are serious and who are not serious. And then those people, they could go into a 45-minute call. And that's typically where you do a presentation and you can sell a high ticket offer. And that's the simple process. That's what I call stage one. Now, stage one is when you make your first 6 figures a month. First 100,000 to 250,000. Once you done with stage one, then you go to stage two. Stage two is Instagram. Stage two is where you start using Instagram shout out pages. So you ever seen like pages like Millionaire Mentor, Motivation Mindset, those pages that typically have like millions of followers. Mm-hmm. Well, you could pay if you get a media buyer, or you could do it yourself. If you're a starter, you could go on there, you could pay them like for a package of like 6-7 shout outs for a couple $100s or whatnot. You want to take the best copy, which is the post that you write with the best content that you have, and have them run it on their page. Is equivalent to back in the day where on TV they would run ads.
So you pay them to post it.
Correct.
On there. Mm-hmm.
So then what ends up happening is the millions of followers that they have, they're going to go ahead and resonate with your content, and they will add you.
Right.
Because you can redirect them to your page. So once they add you, redirect them to the page, this is where your Instagram stories on your main profile is key, because you always want to do the following 3: educate, build foundation, and provide value. Mm-hmm. And if you guys ever look at my Instagram, any of my Instagrams, Paul Alex or the Paul Alex, I do both with all my offers. You know, I always do foundation. Hey, this is where, you know, I come from. Right? Mm-hmm. I come from the law enforcement world. This is how I was able to transition into ATMs, credit card machines, and then finally digital marketing. But I show them the journey. Right. And that's what people want to see. They want to see that.
They want to relate to you.
They want to relate to you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even not everybody's former law enforcement, but they relate to the story of, I did something, I liked it, but I wanted something else, and here's how I got there, kind of thing.
Exactly.
And it's authentic, yeah. When you take them through the struggles. Which I wanted to ask you, have you ever regretted not continuing in the police? Like, was it something, or have you ever had a fear of like, ooh, maybe I should have just stayed there because it's like stability?
No. To be honest, I think the only time where I was just like, ooh, like, should I do this, was a month before I resigned. I remember me and my mother, we have such a great relationship, and Mom, do you think I should leave? Like,
yeah, what was her reaction when you told your mom that you're leaving the job, that she was kind of like, you know?
I know. She didn't get it.
Right.
She didn't get it. our parents, they're old school, but also they just, what you don't know is what you don't know.
Right.
So essentially, she couldn't grasp the concept that someone can make millions of dollars online. So the fact that that had happened, it was just very hard for her to understand that. Even now, when I go speak on stages, she always asks me, like, how much do they pay you to speak on stage? And I'm like, Mom, that's not the way it works. Typically, they introduce you to speak on stage, and the way you get paid is you get all those people in your network. And now they get nurtured through what you just spoke on that keynote speech, and then eventually they will buy. Those are what the best marketers do. We don't just go over there and just get paid $100,000 and that's it. No, we actually get paid millions of dollars in the back end because we know all those people are going to buy. But I have to, explain this to my parents, and they're like, oh, okay. But to go back to what you had said, Cristina, my mom, I remember right before I left law enforcement, she was just like, but think of the benefits.
The benefits are huge.
I know, it's huge.
And you probably have thought about the benefits.
I have. But at the end
I've thought about my benefits so many times after I left. And I was like, oh, until we figured out that we could like do the whole, what's it called? Travel. There's a term for it. Travel, not medicine, but anyways. We travel to Mexico and we spend some time there, and we get like our teeth done there and all of that kind of stuff, right? Because in Canada, so you find your way. But at first, it hits you hard because you're like, wait, if I like need to go to a dentist on an emergency basis, I'm not going to be covered.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I think you guys are covered for dental benefits. I mean, I'm sure you had really great benefits actually as a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
It was fully covered, 100% for everything. It was very hard to leave that.
Yeah.
But at
you
the
get
end
used to it.
Yeah, but you get used to it, and at the end of the day, you make a little extra more money, and you're able to cover it yourself. The biggest rewarding feeling of working for yourself, if I was to say out of everything, it's actually being able to give the opportunity to dozens of people that work for my organization, and you're able to build your own culture, and that's what I love. I always, in my police department, I always saw myself as wanting to be like captain of police or lieutenant of police or even the police chief. That I really told myself that. And I even told myself before I became a detective, I want to be a detective. And I want to work narcotics. And I want to do this. And I want to do that. And everything came true.
Did you work in narcotics?
I did.
So you were like
like undercover, like I would say like 21 Jump Street. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was very unique times. Rode on a little plane, followed people all the way to like LA from like San Francisco. It was crazy. Yeah.
Did you ever pretend like you were like the buyer or whatever? Like what they do?
Yeah. So typically at that time we would go ahead and we would do undercover operations, and I would accompany like informants. I would accompany other people that were like buying the drugs, and then I was in the vicinity. But essentially, we would have like a ton of different investigators looking and getting ready when that would happen. But very unique time in my life. I did that for like 3 years. We actually my unit were on Drugs Inc. on Netflix, but we're all masked up, so you can't tell it's us. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? Is actually really interesting that came to mind because you said you were in Portugal. I believe in Portugal they decriminalized all like substances.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now don't quote me on that. Maybe go research this. But from what I've heard, when they did that, the level of addictions dropped significantly.
Oh wow.
Which is very interesting.
That is interesting.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that what are your thoughts on the whole how legal or illegal substances need to be kind of thing?
Here's the thing. If the U.S. can tax it, I can see them legalizing drugs. I really can. If they could tax it like they did with weed, just think about it. How many years ago were they sending people to like 20, 30 years for selling weed? It's like, come on, man. Really? But at the end of the day, it really depends, right? Because it's up to the politicians. Now, what I don't agree with is certain substance and opiates like fentanyl. Now, that stuff will kill you. There was a situation where we did an operation. I've taken this cocaine dealer to jail, and he just got right out. Like his plug or whatever paid for his bail. Luckily, we still had some information on him. So we followed him to this hotel. And at the hotel, he was in the hotel room with a few kilos of cocaine, probably a few pounds of heroin, and he was waiting for buyers. So he was doing his transactions there. And we were doing the investigation and everything. And I remember this was one of the operations that actually changed my life. We had set up surveillance. We got a warrant to go ahead and raid the actual hotel room where the drugs, the dealer, and we didn't know if he had like a firearm in there. But we had saw several people come out, and every time that somebody would come out, we would go ahead and we have probable cause to go ahead and stop the person based on our observations. Well, every time we would stop a person, it was either hundreds of thousands of dollars in money or huge amount of drugs. So we were like, okay, cool. That guy has a ton of stuff in there. So when we go raid, I remember all of us, we go meet in this parking lot next to the hotel, and we put our, gear on. Just like, I don't know if you remember the old school movie Fast and the Furious, Paul Walker, and, where he puts the raid gear and they can't tell it's him. Reminds me of stuff like that. But we all did that. I remember I was the second person to go into the room in our raid gear. And when we went in there, the guy, he was actually sniffing heroin mixed with fentanyl. Now, it had to be a small portion of it. And the reason why I say that is because fentanyl is very easy to overdose on. This is what nurses give you when they want to numb you at the hospital. So the guy's body was already accustomed to doing fentanyl, to doing drugs.
Right.
Our bodies weren't. So we went in there, it surprised the guy. And the powder went in the air, and it hit everybody. Like, I remember I got dazed. I was just like out of it for a few seconds.
Off of just it being in the air.
Being in the air, yeah. It was like instant. It was weird. But my partner, the first one in there, I remember we had arrested the guy. Within seconds, he was just like, hey, dude, I'm like, I don't feel good. I'm not kidding you, Cristina. Within 3 to 4 seconds, profusely sweating, he turns blue, his lips turn purple, his fingers were purple, he just faints. At that time, I had just got trained in Quantico over there in Virginia at the DEA Academy with a special antidote. And, as soon as I saw that, I was just like, wow. What a blessing that I had just got trained on Narcan. So I was like, get the Narcan. So we go ahead and we actually put it in his nostril, and it's a nasal spray. So we put about 3 doses in his nostril. He comes back alive, but we thought he died.
Wow.
We thought it died.
And just from inhaling it, hey? Wow.
Inhaling it could touch your skin.
It gets you.
Yeah, get into your pores.
I've heard all sorts of, I mean, I guess you could call it conspiracies, because they mix it into other stuff. Like they mix it into other drugs because it costs a lot less.
Yes.
So in Canada, a lot of people believe that it's like, well, if you decriminalize it or if you make it legal and you can buy like clean, so to speak, drugs at like pharmacies or whatever. Like, I don't know if that would ever be feasible, for people, but then it won't have it, because there's been a ton of overdoses on fentanyl. There was like a crisis, I think, in 2018 or 2019. I can't remember. It was all over the news in Canada that people were ODing on it. I know that in Canada now there's a store in Vancouver. There's a store where you can go. I don't know how like the legality of it works. I'm sure it's illegal, but there's a store where you can go and you can buy like every imaginable drug, and it's like pre-tested. Wow. My understanding is that police is not doing anything about it. Wow. But it's like drugs are not legal in Canada. Yeah. So it's very, very bizarre. And the fentanyl thing is really scary, actually, because so many like people who go to music festivals, people who, they just.
Yeah, they could get exposed to it. So at the end of the day, I think even if, let's say they were to legalize narcotics in the United States, you would still have those people that want to make it cheaper, so it's more accessible to people that don't
Right.
have money, right?
Right, because I don't think they would sell stuff like that in the pharmacies, right?
Exactly.
So I'm
Yeah,
like, I
they
don't know
wouldn't.
how. Yeah, it's very strange.
Oh yeah, very very unique situation. But that remember that case, and that was around 2019 when it happened. Completely changed my view, and that also added on to basically besides starting a side hustle as well, because I was just like, wow, like, what if I couldn't work after that, right? I'd be stuck, and I wouldn't be able to live off of disability.
Right.
You know, so I always say this one saying: if you only have one source of income, you're only one step away from poverty. That's why I always tell everybody to diversify.
Yeah. For sure. I don't think I've ever heard, I haven't known that many cops, but inevitably you experience something or, either it's a traumatic experience or something. You rarely meet a cop who's like worked, his or her. I've mainly met male cops, let's get real. But like, it's always something along the lines happens in the career. They have to take time off or they need to leave early, leave the career early because you're kind of bound to experience something, right? Could it ever be smooth sailing if you're a cop and like never experience anything?
Yes. I've known cops that they would graduate, they would go on the street for 1 year, and then they would go and get an admin job inside
okay.
the building.
Okay, so you're not, yeah.
Yeah, so you're not in contact with the public. You're just that's what you're doing. You're essentially a highly paid, glorified assistant, essentially. But I got into police work for completely different reasons. And I said if I was going to do it, I was going to go all in and be a cop's cop and actually help people and make a difference, which I was able to do. And I have stories that I'm going to be able to tell my grandkids, when I have them, that will I'll never experience ever again. And I'm lucky that I did because it built me to be a leader. Without me experience what I did in law enforcement, I would have been able to get the skills and also leadership that I have right now inside of me to have build what I built in entrepreneurship so quickly.
Probably because it put you in a really high pressure situations, right?
It
Where you had
did.
to like right away
Yeah.
respond and solve a problem, right?
So business, to be honest, like when we deal with customer service and we deal with like high pressure situations, even talking on stage, even on podcasts, like I'm just cool, calm, collective. I always say I know my ABCs, always be cool. So, I like to stay neutral and it's really built me up to handle situations.
You know what I wanted to ask you about regarding, because I think you posted a piece of content about that, and I know I have a lot of like especially female audience.
Sure.
You posted something regarding like basic things regarding safety that you need to watch out for when you're in public, or what are those, especially for women?
Yeah. Just don't be on your phone. I always tell my fiance this. Just don't be looking down on the phone, especially when you're out in public, because you never know who might be looking at you. And then also 360. At least 360. I'm not gonna say at all times like you're paranoid, but I still have the habit from when I was an officer. I always just like to look at my surroundings. One key thing that I always tell people, if you're in an area that you're not familiar with, or you're in a new city and you go to a restaurant, you go to a bar, you go to an establishment where you're going to go sit down, always sit down facing the door. Because if you don't know the area, then you're at least the first person to see who comes inside. Also, make eye contact with anybody who comes near you, whether walking. I got this actually from ATMs. Because in the ATM business, we would get a lot of female entrepreneurs that would say like, well, isn't it risky, me holding a lot of money? Majority of time, criminals. Okay, I know from my law enforcement experience, criminals are opportunists. So if they see you looking down, not paying attention, that's when they'll strike. They'll go ahead and try to take advantage
They're
of
so opportunistic that sometimes, you hear of them doing something, or like you watch a movie
Yeah.
and you think to yourself, wow, if you applied those talents to like a legal thing,
Yes.
you would be really well off, you know?
Yeah.
Why'd you choose to go down that path? But it's a whole other conversation.
It's crazy to me. Yeah, I've met some criminals that, like, you know, if they were to apply themselves, they'd be really successful. And I'm like, why do you guys go through all this trouble of, you know, doing this? They're like, well, we don't know any better. Yeah,
right. And wait, you said to when you were talking about sitting at a restaurant facing the door, why is that?
Because then you're able to see who's coming in and out. So let's say if somebody was to go ahead and, I don't know, bring a gun
I see.
or a knife, or you see something in danger coming in there, you're the first person to see that person coming through the door. It's not to say be ultra paranoid,
Right.
just be aware. That's all.
Yeah, it is certain. I had never thought about that actually. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just from my law enforcement
Right.
experience, you know, majority of reports that I've taken from robberies, they never see the person who robs them. They never do.
Interesting.
They always feel the gun, or they'll hear like, break yourself. People actually say that. Break yourself, like in the movies, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know if you guys know Don't Be a Menace.
Yeah. Just South Central. Yeah.
Yeah, but they actually say that,
Yeah,
like in
yeah,
real
yeah.
life. And then I was like, so what's the description on the robber? And they're like, I don't know. I was looking at my phone every single time, like 99% of the time. I was looking on my phone with my headphones on. That's smart. You're like, you know where you're at. And like, you can't be rude like that. At least I wasn't. But, you know, I'm like, dude, like, why? You know the area, like, we advise people, like, it's high
Does it
robberies
have?
over here.
Do you think if you don't look at your phone and you're aware, the criminals in most cases will like think twice before?
100%.
Yeah.
Criminals, they take the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And some of the best criminals that I've investigated, they do their homework. So they know the area. They know who walks through there. It's essentially like saying a lion waiting for their prey. That's essentially what it is. That's the mentality they have.
Right.
So they will be willing to wait in a car, in a parking lot, you know, out in public, and they're going to see who's not looking, who's not paying attention. And that's what happens, you know. In San Francisco, I know we were just talking about this before the podcast, but the famous TikToker, the food critic, who called the Bay Area Gotham City. Well, the reason why is because of all like the cars that get broken into. I mean, it's insane.
Didn't they actually defund the police there? Isn't that actually what happened? I had to throw that in there. I know they did that in Portland. Didn't they try it and it was like a huge disaster?
Yeah, it was a huge disaster.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So the car break-ins is huge in the Bay Area now, you know, and I take that everywhere I go as far as just like never leaving anything in the car.
Right.
Even when I went to Atlanta, we had a rental and we had a box. We were there for an event. Box full of shirts with our logos. Car got broken into because they thought the box had money or something in it, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, they're just going to take the risk.
Right.
It's very easy to break a window. A lot of these criminals, they use spark plugs. Doesn't make a sound. That's not for anybody to use it on this pod. Just saying. But but yeah, that's typically what they use.
Right.
And the glass will shatter instantly without a sound, and boom, within seconds, gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other things that, if there are any? So don't look at your phone. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't listen to music.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then also within dating apps, be very careful. Just because I've investigated a couple of those cases as well. I was also working at SVU for about a year and a half or so. With dating apps, you always want to do FaceTime before you go ahead and you actually meet the person, because you never know. There has been several times in several cases where it could go either or, where the person says, oh yeah, they are not who they say they are, and then they eventually set them up to get robbed, you know. And that's the world we live in, unfortunately, right? Same thing goes with using Craigslist or selling anything online. Be careful. If you ever go and exchange anything as far as items for money, go to the local police station and do it in the lobby. Don't go to any parking lot and do that, because they could set you up to get robbed.
Have you seen that video went viral? This guy was like filming himself by his car with a toaster, And it's like risking my life because my wife decided she wants a new toaster. So now I'm waiting for some guy, James, whatever, from Craigslist to sell it to him and hope I don't get like killed,
Oh my God. I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just like, that's a joke, but it's serious, But no, but yeah, just be careful out there. Just be aware. Like I said, criminals, they're opportunists, but they're also, I just dislike dishonest people and people that do crimes for no reason. There's so many other methods that you could do to do a better, way of living. But I understand a lot of it comes with environment, the environment that I worked in, especially in police work, man, it was poverty. A lot of these kids didn't have moms and dads, and all they had was their friends, which unfortunately their friends were bad influences. And, with that being said, I get it. I resonated with them. I would talk to all of them and be like, hey man, like I understand where you're coming from, but you can't be robbing people, dude.
Right.
Like,
what does it take to change that in a person?
You have to lead by example.
Right.
You have to lead by example. There has to be role models in the community that actually go out there and actually do community work and actually try to help the kids. Because it all comes down to leadership, especially at home. Mm-hmm. And, thankfully for me, my mother, even though she was a single mother when I was a kid, she was the woman and the man. Mm-hmm. She was very hard. And I just, I'm very blessed to have her in my life. Mm-hmm. So.
For sure. We're almost at our time. I think we are at our time, but I do have a final question. Just you said don't ask why you became a cop. I'm not going to ask you why you became a cop, but I'm going to go back to the ATM business just to kind of understand why specifically that. Yeah. So what made you choose that path in particular? And just for our audience to have a little bit more clarity, kind of in a nutshell, how do you actually profit off of an ATM business?
Of course. So I started the ATM business. Number one, it was a very simple business to start out with, especially with the little time that I had. At that time, I was working 80 to 100 work weeks as a detective in narcotics. And after that whole situation that happened with the whole fentanyl and my coworker, I was just like, you know what?
Was that the moment when you were like, okay, that's it? Like that, the definitive?
That was like the tipping point, yeah, where it happened. And then I had just talked to a friend of mine who really would talk to me about ATMs all the time. And he was stuck on analysis paralysis, meaning that, he was a person that would research all day, but would never like do anything with it. So then finally, when that had happened, I'm big on execution. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So
do you think most problems come from people not executing? Like you're saying a lot of research, but not actually doing anything about it?
It's very true. It happens. It happened to me for years. Yeah. It actually delayed me for years because I used to like to think myself as a perfectionist. In life, you can never have everything perfect. Right. Even the biggest corporations, sometimes they go ahead and they put things together and they're like, this was amazing, right? From their clients. And they're like, thank you. Little do the clients know, like they just barely just put everything together.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's just the way entrepreneurship is. Yeah. You just got to go and put it out there. And if it works, cool. If it doesn't, you learn from your mistakes. And that's just the way it is. That's why it's entrepreneurship. It's a risk. But with the ATMs, I just simply picked because everything aligned right. It's a super simple business that I could understand. I'm not the smartest person in the world. And I was like, okay, I could do this. I used to do sales before law enforcement. So I could go out there and talk to people and cold call and all that. And that's what I did. I took 2 weeks off, paid vacation, went out there, put my old suit on. And I was just like, hey, how's it going? You need an ATM? And I was able to get 6 locations. Here's the thing, though. You need to know specifics on where you're going to place the ATM based on foot traffic and then also cash and necessities around the area. Because 3 out of the 6 locations didn't do well. It only made me like $50. The other ones were making me around like $300 to $500. So by my second month, I had 6 ATMs placed. And I was just like, dude, how come it's not generating me the funds that I thought it was going to generate me? And I followed this guy on Facebook groups, met him on Facebook groups, and he's from SoCal, had thousands of ATMs, and I had messaged him, hey man, can we connect? And was able to connect with him, and he was able to mentor me. So 2 things that this did for me. Number 1, it showed me the proper way to get to success in a faster way. And this is why I'm a big believer in self-education. Self-education is key. Why would you go ahead and struggle just because you don't want to pay for somebody's time? I'd rather just take the shortcut, pay somebody to get to success faster. Majority of successful people...
Like somebody who can educate you.
Yeah,
I mean.
somebody who can educate you, somebody who can essentially give you the blueprint. It's the fastest way to success.
Especially if they've done something that you are planning on doing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So after he had mentored me, I replaced my locations, my 3 locations, and within my 3rd month, made $3,000.
And you mean just like the actual the actual machine?
Yes.
You put it in a different. Okay.
Correct.
And you were making money off of the fees from it?
Making money off the fees, yes.
Oh, so those annoying fees that they ask you whether or not you want to pay.
Correct. And the way that works, Cristina, is that the ATM is connected to a network processing, okay, or processing network. And the processing network, think about your phone, okay? It's like Verizon, AT&T, right? Well, this processing network, it connects to the bank and it also connects to your customer's bank. So when your customer uses their debit card, it withdraws whatever amount that they want up to $200, which is the maximum usually. Unless you're in like a tattoo shop or dispensary, then they charge you a percentage. So then they take the money that you withdrew plus the fee, the surcharge fee, the $3, $3.50. I was charging $3.50, $4 in
It's
California.
usually fairly universal, I would say, no?
Yeah.
Like there's not huge fluctuations from an ATM to an ATM, I find.
No.
Internationally, actually, anywhere I've been, it's usually pretty
Except Vegas.
similar.
Vegas is like $15.
Oh.
Yeah, Vegas, they get you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm not even talking about strip clubs, just the casino. But yeah, so you make money off the fees, and then the money inside the ATM is actually your money. It's not the bank's money. So you put a couple $1,000s in there, and that's your operating expenses. That money goes nowhere. So essentially, you let the customer borrow your money. Once it runs out, through an application on your phone, it alerts you. You're down to your last 500. Then you can go back to the bank and reload again the same funds. Because
And that's when like the guys with machine guns usually. I don't know if they do it like that in the States.
You could do the armory. You could do that's a vault company. Typically does that. They'll go.
I was just in Mexico, so it's like a whole big deal. Like there's
Mexico's
guys with machine guns, and like God forbid anyone is around the ATM at that time. It's pretty intense.
Mexico is definitely a different game for sure.
Yeah.
You know, we've gotten a lot of inquiries from Mexico. They're like, hey, can you put ATMs? Can you put BTMs down here? We're like, no, sorry.
We got scammed on an ATM there once. My husband
Really?
and I. We took out cash. We heard it count the cash.
Yeah.
But it never gave us the cash.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So thankfully, our bank in Canada. Not saying bad things about Mexico. I literally we live half of the year there, but there's just certain things like that happen sometimes. So you're like, but yeah, it counted the money, didn't give it to us. But thankfully, our bank just basically labeled us as fraud and put the money back in our account.
Oh,
it was like $500.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, that's my money. Give me my money. You know, the ATM is supposed to give you money. And then we went back there, I remember, just to see what was happening. And they took away the ATM. So they probably got caught.
Oh, yeah.
After us, yeah.
Yeah. They set that up, especially for fraud. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's as simple as that. That's the reason why I started with ATMs. But essentially what I tell people is ATMs was my vehicle. What I mean by my vehicle to financial freedom. Didn't make me a millionaire. I was already a millionaire when I was a cop. How? Real estate.
Real estate, yeah.
Yeah. I've invested in property since the age of 22. I would buy, wait a couple years, sell, buy, wait a couple years, sell. And then eventually I had $1 million home. And then my net worth was over $1 million. I was making $250K as a cop. I was living a good life.
You had a comfortable life.
But it came down more to my why. I always talk about my why. If you guys look at my content, and my why was my family. My parents are getting older. I wanted to take care of them, take care of the family. I'm big on family. And ATMs is what bought back my time. And that's what it is. I think the new rich is what can make you have time freedom.
Right.
It's not about the material things. Who cares? We can't take that with us. It's about the memories. You know, at the age of 36 now, like my 20s was a blur. Like my 30s, living my best life because it's just like I'm able to go and actually spend time with the people that I love and do like crazy things that we never thought we would be able to experience, you know? And I'm also able to take my parents to the ride, and they never thought they'd be able to do the things that they were able to do now, you know, and say their son's like the first millionaire in the family and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm trying to build my younger sister up now. She was, both my sisters were registered nurses. One of them left their job to come work for me because she wanted to work remote. She wants to be a digital nomad. I think that's powerful. It's the ripple effect. How many people's lives can I change? You know? I think it's cool.
I think it's like a millennial thing, right? Like the boomers, they're all about like work, you know, even if you have to work 10 hours, 12 hours a day, work. The millennials, they're more like, hey, no, we need to have our time and our money.
Yeah.
And then Gen Z, you're all, I don't know what's going on with you, but
Yeah.
they just don't work. No, just kidding. Obviously, there's lots of opportunity to just balance those, right? And not go to the extremes.
Of course. Everything with balance. Everything, whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you have to be happy with what you do. Not necessarily say that you have to go follow your passion to become financially free, because at the end of the day, sometimes we have to do things that we're not passionate about, but for the long-term vision. And I feel like that's what I did. I went into corporate America because I knew that commission-based jobs was going to pay me the most, especially at the age of 21, 22, which I was able to make six figures at the age of 22, buy my first little condo, you know, do well. And then finally, I just pivoted and I was just like, well, let me try being the police because it's different, right? And I went there and I knew that the police offer overtime and I'm a worker. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went there, unlimited overtime. That's what I did, saved my money, and then just reinvested my money into side hustles, investments, houses, you know, just played it smart. That's all. Most people ask me, like, where do I find the money to start a business? And I say 9 to 5, just work. Just work. It's as simple as that. We make it difficult on ourselves. Life is actually pretty simple if you lay it out and you write it all out. And that's what I do. I usually tell people get a whiteboard. Every day I have a to-do list. And that's it. I just mark everything that I have to do every day. And they're like, how do you get so much things done? My whiteboard.
Right. When you write stuff down, it's incredible how much more
clarity.
you have clarity. And with finances too, like it just sounds like you're good at managing money. You're good at knowing where the money should go. That's a skill that I feel like like I didn't know it at all up until I had to learn it.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting to me that it's not, maybe it is taught and I missed the lesson. I don't know, but it's not really taught to us growing up.
It's not. You're right.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
And, you know, this is why when you had said like, oh, wow, you're thinking of moving out the country. I was like, yeah, because to be honest, I don't think I'm going to have my kids go to public school in the U.S. I really don't. And it's just my personal reason because I want them to follow their passion, but then also to be well off. I want them to be wealthy. I want them to go ahead and work hard for what they have. So I want to really build generational wealth, but then have them have the mindset of continuing to build generational wealth. And the only way you're able to build generational wealth is from one single person that changed the dynamic of how your family thinks. And I'm that one person that's changed the dynamic of how everybody thinks in my family, even my mom. And my mom has always been the type to say, like, I'm never going to change who I am, right?
Right.
Because she's old school, and I get that. But she respects me.
Right.
Because of what I've been through and what I've been able to accomplish and how I take care of everybody.
Yeah.
So
she saw you succeed and now she's like, okay, maybe that
I'll
makes sense.
I'll give Miss Kudos.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Paul. I appreciate it. How can people find you? We'll link everything in the comments, but just quickly, if our audience is listening strictly on audio.
Of course. They can find me at Instagram, Paul Alex. I also have a second one, The Paul Alex. And then you could go to any of my websites. I actually have a free book that I would like to give to your audience as well at www.officialpaulalex.com/free book.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to our wonderful listeners to tuning into this episode. I will see you next week.